What's up, Bears fans? Welcome back to the Willis Twin Towers podcast. Not the game we were hoping to see last week. Went down to Arizona, quite frankly, got smoked. So outplayed in pretty much the entirety of the game in all facets, unfortunately. So we'll get down into that a little bit more later. We'll talk about the upcoming game against New England. But before we start everything, we start the show going here. Just a quick reminder, guys, to please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can find us at Barroom Network here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us all on X or Twitter. My handle is @ Jeff Willis. You can find Tim, and I'll switch it over to him in just a little bit here, at Tim Willis 24. And you can find our executive producer, Aldo, who manages all this content at Barroom Network. So without further ado, Tim, why don't you introduce yourself and let's dig into this previous disaster last week.
Whew, boy. Yeah. I guess I'll just start just by saying, I'm Tim Willis. As usual, back again here, but there's a lot to dig into here, Jeff. And honestly, we could be going at this for like 4 or 5 hours tonight and still not have enough time. So I'm going to do my best to try to kind of consolidate all this into a meaningful banter and not just me mumbling back and forth. But let's go ahead and get started with this. And I think the biggest thing for me so far this season, and one of the things that's really lacking that I think would really be a step in the right direction, is this chemistry between Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. That seems to be a huge red flag, in my opinion. I mean, this is a guy that you now extended for $110 or whatever it was $1 million in the offseason to be a pairing with Caleb for the next 6 seasons. I mean, this is your rookie quarterback you brought in. Obviously, he's going to be the face of your franchise, and you have a bona fide number one that you have locked up for 6 years. And we had all hoped that there would be this really great chemistry between the two of them, and hopefully early, and we would really start to see that flourish, especially with the addition of Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, and they've got Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. We thought with that multitude of weapons, it would help DJ Moore, considering last year he was doubled up so much. You know, this year he'll get a lot of single coverage and one-on-ones, and that should bring a lot of success and bring, hopefully, some wins along with it. Considering last year the great chemistry that Justin Fields and DJ Moore had. And, you know, DJ had been asked about this week, and basically his comment on that was because he was asked, you know, why was your chemistry so good with Justin last year and it's lacking this year with Caleb Williams? And he basically just said, like, well, look, number one, this was not Justin's rookie season. It was Justin's 3rd year in the league. I mean, he's already had plenty of reps and starts. And, you know, I came in here and it was just another great addition for him, more or less. And that was able to kick off quickly. And another thing he didn't mention that I think is important in that case is there wasn't a whole lot outside of DJ Moore last year for Justin to throw the ball to. Really, it was honestly the DJ Moore and Cole Kmet show on offense. That's basically what it was outside the run game. So honestly, that has a lot to do with why he was so peppered with targets. However, I think, in my opinion, that this should be more successful considering what I just mentioned earlier, how they have so many other weapons now. You can't just key in on DJ Moore. You have to key in on the others. And if we're being totally honest, Keenan Allen has really been a dud. I mean, we haven't seen much from him compared to what we've seen from him in the past. And I have felt like, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this on the show before, but I feel like they've been so concerned with getting Keenan Allen involved because of how little he was involved in the first several weeks, and especially after being injured and whatnot, that they've tried very hard to get him invested in this offense. And they've kind of had DJ Moore be as more of that decoy or just kind of take a back seat. And it's also been the same case with Cole Kmet. And I have a serious issue with this because if you're watching the games, you can see that DJ Moore is open all the time. And it's not just open, he is wide open in more cases than not. And all you have to do is look that way, throwing the ball, and he's going to get you chunk yards. You just got to give DJ a chance, and he's going to make a play for you. And there was a play in the game in the end zone where, and they talk about this in the interviews and the press conferences, and you hear Tim Jenkins talk about this, but there's a play. Actually, Aldo, if you can you pull up that clip? There's a clip we have of Tim Jenkins talking about this specific play, and then I'll go into a little bit of detail afterwards about it.
I didn't walk away worried about Caleb Williams from this game, and to me, I still feel great about where he's at. I did walk away a little bit thinking this team isn't. I walked away more thinking to myself, I don't know if you have these droughts from these veteran receivers, you have the lack of competitive grit, maybe let's call it. If there's not clear signs on the tape, this was it, of guys just not going out there and competing and unmotivated by the guy at the top.
Okay, we definitely need to get into that. And I, for whatever reason, I was thinking this was the one he was talking about, that play. But regardless, there's a play in the game where Caleb throws a fade ball to the corner of the end zone to Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore is absolutely wide open on a slant across the field, and he walks into the end zone if Caleb throws that ball his way. And Shane Waldron was asked about this and basically just said, that's Caleb's progression, is Keenan Allen on that play. He's the first progression there, and he's been very comfortable taking that play. If he sees a one-on-one matchup, he's willing to take the shot to that guy. Basically saying, not saying that DJ wasn't open, but yeah, I mean, I'm totally fine with him throwing that ball. So, but to me, it's I understand the one-on-one, and yes, it's Keenan, and if you get a chance there, but he's not as open as DJ is there. I don't care if he is one-on-one. You have an easy touchdown there, and this is so easy for me to say, obviously, because I'm not the one playing the quarterback position, and I'm not the one out there. But at the same time, we're seeing this pretty frequently. And at some point, when are we going to have the coaching point that says, hey, I like that you're looking for the guy that's one-on-one and you want to give your guy a chance because we have some great receivers here. But at the same time, we also need to get DJ Moore going, and he's clearly been wide open a lot this season. We've got to start giving him a chance. So, Jeff, I don't know if you saw the same things that I am, but it's pretty evident to me that DJ is taking a back seat. And honestly, Cole Kmet has also taken a back seat while we try to get things figured out on offense. Whereas I believe if you want to get things going on offense, it's been proven over the season so far that when DJ and Cole are involved and they're heavily targeted, the team wins football games.
Okay, so I think there's a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of factors at play here. So first of all, we have to keep in mind that protection has not been very good. So that's one thing. And there's been injuries along the front five too. So that's a problem as well. On top of that, they've been trying to establish the run game, and they've actually had a pretty good run-pass balance for the most part. Another issue we're seeing is, let's be honest, Caleb has not played particularly well as of late. He's been missing on a lot of throws for whatever reason or another. He just has not been consistently accurate this year, especially on stuff that he was consistently accurate with in college. And in this last game in particular, he was really trying to go for the home run a lot, something he did a lot at USC as well. And I don't want to say that it looks like regression by any means, but it's when you get into a habit of doing things like that a lot, it's kind of hard to get away from it. At some point, there's going to be a time where you probably revert back to some old habits at times. So I'm not concerned by it, as Tim Jenkins said in that soundbite there. But I will say that the inaccuracies are an issue. They got to get that cleaned up. He's got issues with just like I said, looking for the home run ball and not taking the check down, because there were several of them in that game where there were some opportunities there. I didn't think that Waldron called a particularly bad game, if we're being honest, in that last one against Arizona. They just didn't. I mean, they didn't make anything happen. And the one thing I will say about Waldron as far as play calling and and personnel utilization is that, like you said, he's not involving the targets that need to get involved, like DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, who, when those guys are going, your offense is going. And, Keenan Allen has had one really good game. That's about it, honestly. He just doesn't look like the same Keenan Allen to me on tape. So I just, it's unfortunate that's the reality. I mean, I think they were hoping that he would be more of a factor on third down. I think they're trying to dictate that he's a factor on third down and in the red zone. And the fact of the matter is it's just not working as much as they'd like it to. Like I said, they had the one big game where he had the 2 touchdowns in the red zone, and he's had some other moments as well. But I mean, really, it hasn't gone the way they really wanted it to, in my opinion. So hopefully it gets turned around. But at the end of the day, you have to start getting the ball into the hands of your playmakers. And Cole Kmet has looked, I've said this multiple times on this podcast in the last couple months now, but Cole Kmet looks fantastic right now. I mean, he looks the best he's ever looked, in my opinion, in his entire career, especially the way he's, running routes and his speed on film. He's moving fast. So I like the way he looks. And that's another thing. I just don't understand why they're not getting him the football. The offense moves well when they're getting him the football. So, I mean, that is a cause for concern if they're not going to find a way to adjust their personnel the way they need to offensively. Now, again, as I said at the very beginning when I started here, the offensive line has been an issue, especially these last couple of weeks. There's been some injuries, and this week is going to be a test too with both their starting tackles out, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But it's just, what I don't get about this whole thing is it's kind of been a consistent theme here throughout the season is why are we not using our personnel the way we should? There's really only been a handful of games where it was used in a pretty decent manner. I will say they finally figured out how to use DeAndre Swift correctly, and he's made his own personal adjustments as well. And he's looked fantastic, over the last stretch of games here. So that's one thing I'll talk about a little bit more later too, especially for this next game. They have got to just run the football more. I know you're trying to get your quarterback to develop, and you're doing it in a way that you're just throwing everything at him because he can handle it. But at the same time, it's you're not exactly taking the reins back by not making him throw the ball as much. You know what I mean? It's just you're allowing something that's working, your running game, to keep you in football games and probably move some chains a little bit more. So, and you're going to control more clock running the ball. So I don't understand why that hasn't been more of a point of emphasis. They have been balanced to an extent, but it's we haven't had any games yet where it's the run pass ratio is way towards run more so than pass, if that makes sense to you guys. So, I don't know. It's just that's a little concerning to me that they're not, with a rookie quarterback, they're not trying to get the run game involved or get the run game going more. And, now they just traded one of their running backs. So it's they're just going to have to rely on the 2 that they got now at the top. And I think that was kind of the idea for them because they haven't been using Herbert anyway. So we'll get into that a little bit later too, because I know that's Tim's boy. So, but anyways, guys, I see there's a couple questions that have been pouring in here. So if we don't get to them here in the next, throughout the course of the show, we'll definitely get to them by the end. So I appreciate you guys throwing them.
A lot of your questions will be answered as we continue on here because I promise you, we share a lot of the same questions that you guys do as far as this coaching staff and the direction of the team and so on and so on. So we will get to a lot of that stuff. I promise. But
let me make one more point here because this was the real concern for me in this past game. Okay. Number one, the defense did not play well. And that's been the first time we've seen that all season long. The first time they've given up as many points as they did. They get, what was it, 29? And they hadn't given up more than 21 all season, in a stretch of 9 or 10 games or something. So
13. It'd have been 13 games.
It's 13 games. Yeah, my mistake. So, but in any case, it's just not. It's not conducive, to winning when you're. They all basically took themselves out of the game, in my opinion. They all kind of looked lazy. I mean, I don't know what was going on. They all looked like they still had that remnant stench of that Hail Mary on them. And it's unfortunate because you want to see them bounce back from something like that and play better in the face of that and be upset by that. But instead, they kind of let it linger. And it's sad because they should be taking that to heart and playing better ball and giving themselves a chance at the playoffs here. And now we're going to get to this in a little bit too. Now this becomes a must-win game against New England if they want to stand a chance at the playoffs. So because they got a gauntlet coming up, guys. They've got a gauntlet of a schedule coming up. And you guys are making some great points, and you're like, Cliff, you're talking about Keenan. His plantar fasciitis takes a long time to heal, especially for using his foot hard, which he is. I mean, that's part of the reason, in my opinion, why he hasn't quite looked the same is because he's dealing with that foot injury. So it's obviously limiting him, in my opinion. Samuel's talking about establishing a run game. Basically what I just said, I totally agree with that. ATF at all times says they have to get Rojo more involved. I totally agree with that too. You have to get them all. If you get more carries to the running game, you're going to get more carries for Roschon because he's going to pound the ball. He'll get you those tough yardage situations. Use him on first and second down every once in a while. Get 3-4 yards, a carry, whatever the case may be. But now you're looking at third and short instead of, third and long. So that's why I like getting that change of pace in there. I've told you guys this like 3 or 4 times now in the past month or so. They're like the thunder and lightning combo. And I don't know why they're not using them more that way.
They could have had Earth, Wind, and Fire if they would have stuck with all 3 running backs. And something.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. Well, I know you love your boy Herbert, Tim, but it just, they didn't, obviously for whatever reason or another, the offensive staff didn't like him. And, Greg has said on his show many times, if you guys aren't familiar with Greg Gabriel, he has a show on our channel here called Gabriel Talks Football. You should check it out. But he's mentioned several times in the past that, Herbert is a one-dimensional player. He's just a good runner. He's not he doesn't catch the ball well, and he doesn't pass block well. So those are things that running back.
Jeff, I like what Aldo says. I don't like what Aldo says here, but he makes a good point. He says, mark my words, Swift or Rojo will get hurt on Sunday. And this is exactly what I've been talking about for weeks now, about why you don't want to trade Khalil Herbert. So we're going to go into this really quick. We're already talking about it. If you guys don't know, which I'm sure you do, Khalil Herbert got traded earlier this week to the Cincinnati Bengals. He actually played on Thursday night. I don't know what his game was like. It wasn't very good. He only got a couple carries, and one of them he fumbled the very first one he got, but the handoff didn't look so great either. It just was a really quickly ugly play. But regardless, the Bears traded him away. And this is what I've been talking about for a while. It actually kind of surprised me that it actually went to this direction, but over the last 2 weeks, I knew it was coming. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, when somebody gets hurt, we're screwed. Like, because you have nothing. What are you going to use? Travis Homer, who has literally done nothing in the run game in his career. He has been hot garbage the times you've given him carries. So what are you going to do? If Rojo gets hurt, or really if DeAndre Swift gets hurt, you're in big trouble in the run game. But this is part of it. Like, I mean, what are you going to do? Because now you got nobody.
Did you see what happened this week? So obviously, Homer is back and healthy again, so he'll be on the active roster. But they signed Darrington Evans to the practice squad, so he's back for his third stint with the Bears.
Yeah, and what did we see out of Darrington Evans over the time? I mean,
he's played pretty well.
Okay,
he runs the ball pretty well.
Played okay.
I mean,
he's played
not
okay.
Not that worse off than Herbert. I mean, I guess that's probably a stretch, but
that's a big stretch, Gumby. That's about as big of a stretch as you can get.
He's run the ball pretty well in his time with the Bears. So I don't mind that move at all. And I would guess there's a good chance he would get elevated relatively soon.
I mean, he will if somebody gets hurt for sure.
So we'll see. It'd be nice if oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name now. Kid on the that got hurt in
Ian Wheeler
in training camp. Wheeler. It'd be nice to have Wheeler around right now. But in any case, that's the way it is, and they still need to get the run game going. So just pound it with your 2 best backs that you have, and Rojo and Swift, and make it happen.
Well, and if you've noticed, they've used Caleb under center quite a bit. Open up that action game. Your run and play action, it's there. They just don't use it because they don't freaking run the ball enough.
Well, what I've noticed is they've kind of gotten away from the bootlegging that they were doing with him in the past, and he's not really doing that as much as he was before. And I'm kind of I understand you're like splitting the field in half when you do that, but I mean, he's had success with it, so why not go to it a little bit more?
Yeah, especially in the scramble drill and things. That's the direct whatever. And, I don't understand.
Give him DJ or Komet come over the middle there and just hit him. If nothing deep is there.
Well, this is something I want to make a point of too. Now you say that. Where has the short passing game been? Why are there no slants? Why is there no naked or boots? Where is this stuff? Quick, short, easy throws, get him moving out of the pocket maybe a little bit. There's nothing there. This offensive line has been atrocious at pass protection. So why are you not using that? I'm telling you right now, if they try this setup against Minnesota in 2 weeks, they're going to get murdered by that blitz. You have to be able to get the ball out quick. And I swear, if we see to open the game a screen pass like we did last year, they got blown up and Caleb got murdered. or not Caleb, that Justin got murdered on, I'm going to be living. But you've got to do something. You have to change it up. And I promise you that New England with Gerard Mayo is going to pull out some stunts too. They're going to get some exotic looks in there. They're going to blitz. And we got to be able to pick it up for one. And you know how you help that out? You get the quick passing game going. Why does every throw we need to make have to be a deep shot down the field? He's not connecting on those. And part of that is because he's not getting in a rhythm. That's one thing we have. And it's hilarious that I say this because it's not funny, but it is funny. What's the thing that Matt Eberflus preaches about the most with Caleb Williams that he needs to do? He needs to get into the rhythm and the timing of the offense and his throws. He needs to get in that rhythm and the timing, I mean, it's like clockwork. He says this every week. Well, how are you going to get him in a rhythm if you don't give him throws to get in a rhythm? It's let's take a deep shot down the field here. We'll run the ball this play. Then we're going to take 3 shots down the field here. Nothing is there. We're going to end up 3rd and 15 because we had 2 penalties on the drive or whatever else it may be. The kid is never getting an opportunity to get into a rhythm, and that's something we're not talking about enough. Get him into a rhythm. Get those slants. Who is one of the best slant receivers in the NFL? DJ freaking Moore. I mean, the guy can take those to the house if you give him some space, but we're not getting into those things. I don't understand the thought process. Slants are one of the safest and most effective routes in the NFL for a receiver and a quarterback. Like, why would we not do that? Why are we not trying those things more often instead of deep shot down the field here or some other nonsense play it's just not working? Now, I'm not going to harp too much because if I'm being quite honest, I don't think Waldron's play calling has been that bad. At times, it's been excellent. Obviously, there's been some really bad ones, like the speed option, like the handoff to Kramer. There's been times where it's been really bad. But I do think the play calling has been pretty good for the most part. He has given the offense an opportunity. But with that being said, he is avoiding the run game to a point, and that was one of the fair criticisms he got out of Seattle. And there's a lot of deep shots down the field and not a whole lot of short throws and easy completions for Caleb Williams, which is something that everybody's talking about all this success Jaden Daniels is having. That is what they've done with him. They've given him a lot of easy throws where he can just get the ball and get it out quick. And that's something that maybe we should be taking over here.
Both these guys make good points in the comments here. Dennis says that everyone wants the splash plays that Brady, Manning, and Breeze made their living on the slants and dinks and dunks, and they did for the most part. You know, Brady took his shots every once in a while. Manning took his shots every once in a while, but he didn't have enough arm to really air it out some of the way these other guys do. But, you know, Breeze was really kind of the same way. I mean, he took his shots where he could, but they made their living in the quick game. So, and you kind of have to
accurate when they made those throws because they were in a rhythm.
And Caleb was showing that he's been pretty good at it in a couple of these games, but it's the inconsistency here. It's like we just talked about. He's kind of like, it feels like he's reverting to a little bit of old habits, but I don't want to say he's regressing because just when you've done that kind of stuff enough and it becomes like habit, you're going to kind of have a tendency to go back a little bit once in a while. But it's just, continuing to grow and getting back to what you need to do to win in this league. And it's just going to come down to, playing that game the way you need to play it. There's going to be a lot of quick game. There's going to be a lot of, throws that got to be on time and they got to be, in the pocket. And they got to just, you can't always be looking for the big shot down the field. And there was a little bit of that going on these last couple of games, more so than you'd like to see. So, but that being said, there was another point that I think it was Bearski made. Here it is. To be fair, there have been multiple situations where the ball hits Keenan or DJ right in the hands and they drop it. There were several drops in the last game. And unfortunately, the reality of the game against Arizona was just the entire team played poorly from top to bottom. They all played poorly. The coaching wasn't great. Offensively, they played poorly in all respects. The receivers were dropping balls. O-line couldn't protect. Caleb was missing throws. He was extending plays too much.
Guys are getting hurt right and left.
Guys are getting hurt. Defensively,
part of that is probably effort too. If they're not putting a lot of effort out, then there's a good chance they're going to get hurt, and that could be some of it too. Defensively,
they couldn't stop the run at all. They were having problems. They couldn't. They were giving up plays all over the place. Mm-hmm. So it was just, they're giving up tons of points, and they could not stop the run at all. That was just a total problem for them, which I've told you guys before, they've had issues with those explosive chunk runs, but I mean, you see like one, maybe two of them in a game. This past game, they were just giving up runs left and right. I mean, big chunk runs. I mean, there was nothing in between. It was, just every time Connor got the ball, he was gashing them. And then there was that other guy who made that big run right before the half, Demercado, 56-yard run or whatever that was with 10 seconds left in the half or something. I mean, that's a joke. That's a joke, guys. You're going to give up a 56-yard touchdown right before the half? That's a total joke. The game was done after that. As soon as they have it, like I said, that's what it felt like to me, you guys, that there was a residual effect that Hail Mary had on them in this game. And it was like not fun to watch. The game was just like, it was like a nightmare. They everything they did looked like it lacked energy, like it lacked focus. So I mean, I hope they get their shit together this week because it was really poor showing on all facets. It was bad. So I really, I hope they get it together because we are going to be looking at some change if they don't start to, get on a roll here, get some wins. And play better ball. But again, I think a big part of it is just like the effort was a problem. And that kind of looks bad on Flus now because in the past, all he's had is great effort from his players. So what I want to know is if he's going to, be able to get more from them in these next few games or if they're going to continue on this landslide. And then you're looking at, losing your coach at the end of the season. But, in any case, we got to move on. So
let's talk about that coaching, though. This is the big topic for everybody. Everyone's talk about.
That's kind of a good segue there.
We've actually got several clips for you guys, basically talking about the coaching staff and things that are going on. But just to preface this is clearly becoming a serious issue. I mean, we've all talked about the in-game management issues that Eberflus has had. Now we're hearing 2 and 3 weeks in a row that players are coming out and saying things about the coaching staff and how they're not doing this. Earlier in the season, it was the offensive players were saying, hey, we need to be held to a higher standard. Now we're being told that guys aren't working as hard in practice. And there's a lot of things going on that are now being told to be kept in-house. And the coaching staff is clearly getting irritated with these guys going out and saying things. But at the same time, that if you want it to be kept in-house, then some of this stuff needs to be nipped in the butt. Like, why are we talking about this stuff still? You, as the coach, are responsible for the players. And at some point, when are you going to hold yourself to the standards that you're expecting the players to be held to when you're talking about the HITS principle? You want hustle, intensity, the football, and smart football. Okay? Well, one of the eyes in that, and I saw somebody said something about this on here, is that intensity. You can't be everybody's buddy all the time. I get that he's a player's coach, and that's great, and he should be, and the players should want to play for him. But you also have to have that fire and be like, look, at some point, there's disciplinary action for this. There's disciplinary action for this. You guys players should not want to go out there and talk about the coaching staff. This would have never happened under Lovie Smith, ever. That stuff would have never come out because those players knew and they respected Lovie Smith. I'm not saying that the players don't respect Flus, but I think it's a little bit more open-ended. Like if they're willing to talk about him on these radio shows and be honest about it, that's pretty telling to me, especially when it's not usually good things they have to say about it. And there was a clip from DJ this week even where he was asked if he thought Matt Eberflus had lost the locker room, and it told me everything I needed to know. And Greg Gabriel also talked about this on his show. His words were, I want to say no. That's all I need to hear. I want to say no. That doesn't mean it's that he hasn't. He still could have. So I don't know. To me, it's very concerning. If the fact that DJ Moore is out here saying this kind of stuff. So Jeff, real quick, let's get into one of these clips. Aldo, if you could pull up, I'll give you a second to do this. Can you throw up the clip of Caleb Williams in the press conference on, I believe it was Sunday after the game? Listen to what he's got to say, guys.
Yeah. I landed wrong and just kind of tweaked it. And in the last play, the dude grabbed my ankle and gator rolled and tried to get off of it, because when you stay on it, that's when bad stuff starts to happen and breaks and all of that. So tried to just let my body go so I could fall and roll with them. Yeah.
Do you sense you're okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yep.
You feel like maybe you shouldn't have been in the game at that point, down 3-0?
It's not my decision. You fight to the end of the game. If you're in the game, if not, coach makes a decision like that. You have to deal with it and figure out, the next steps. But, not my decision.
Yeah. So, okay. So a couple of things here. So first of all, there was a question about this, but let's get to it. That Cliff asked, what happened with the coaches the last 2 games? He thought they finally had it going well, and then they went back to bed. And there was another comment from I can't remember who it was now, but they said that it was McFact, I believe, that the Bears coaches, and Eberflus in particular, needed to show some anger, some frustration, some fire, and I totally agree with that. And before we get to that, here's that video in and of itself. Okay. Caleb looks kind of deflated there. The coaches on the sidelines during the game look deflated there. All the players look deflated during the game. As I said earlier, they didn't play with great energy at all. It's like they all forgot that they still had a game to play, and they can't be getting all down in the dumps or whatever, they just looked like shit. And it's concerning. That's a coaching concern. And then the same thing with the comments with Caleb there. I don't really see a ton from that, as competitors, they're going to try to be out there and win, but they didn't play very hard for the most part. So it's just, I don't know. The coaches in that instance, they need to get them off the field and protect them. Absolutely. But I have a hard time getting too down on him. Now, if he'd have gotten hurt for that or from that would have been a problem. If Caleb sustains an injury from that, everybody's upset. So the game was out of hand. The game was already done. You just got to get him out of the game. I mean, it's really not that complicated. I think everybody was kind of in the clouds in that game. I don't know what the hell was going on. It was concerning, and they need to get back on track. And I really hope they do in these next few weeks. So, and that's, again, a good point that McFact made that I wanted to mention. I almost forgot. So you mentioned that you need to see more fire from Eberflus, right? Okay, I totally agree with that, because what has the message been about Eberflus since day one? He's the same guy day in and day out, right? That's what everybody keeps saying about him. Day in and day out. He's the same exact guy. In my opinion, games like this, moments of adversity like this, which the Bears are finally seeing some real adversity here. Real coaches, okay, you can be the same guy day in and day out and show your players that, there are times where it's we're not effing around no more kind of thing, okay? It's you got to step up, get animated every once in a while, and be the man. Some of the best coaches that I've ever seen or ever had in my lifetime, I should say, all of my best coaches that I can think of, they all knew when to push the buttons. They knew when it was time to get angry. All the good coaches were players' coaches, wrestlers aren't players, quote unquote. So it's all my wrestling coaches were all, they had their wrestlers in mind. Okay. They were all connected with us well, but they knew when it was, when we were not being at our best, or there were moments where we were, in the middle of adversity and it's time to, get a boot up our ass. They knew when to stick that boot up our ass, and it worked. So, it's a poor metaphor, I guess, but at the end of the day, you guys see what I'm saying. So I do kind of want to see that a little bit from Flus, and he might not necessarily show it to the media, but my hope is that in the locker room, that's the Flus they're seeing. I just don't know. That's the only problem with it.
I will say this to you. I took this a little differently than you. I do believe this is a slight one, but a direct jab at Flus. It really is, in my opinion. Basically, it's not that Caleb is saying that he doesn't want to be out there and be a competitor, but he left it open with, well, it's not my decision. In that situation, and you can see on the field, he was frustrated even to be out there. And then he almost gets hurt, and he's sore after the game. I'm sure he was irritated. And yes, I understand. Look, I didn't necessarily hate the decision, because yes, you do want them to get going in a 2-minute operation. You want guys to, I get all that. You should have done that in a freaking preseason, though. That's what the preseason is for. And you don't send guys out there. This is 3 years in a row now where Flus has refused to play his starters in the preseason games. And then, for whatever reason, it's a real surprise, we start flat as the season starts off. We're sluggish. We're flat. We can't seem to get anything going offensively or defensively until the second half of the season. It's not rocket.
I get it. I understand that, Tim. You got a good point. But at the same time, it's like we're 8 games in now, and they're still starting slow in games offensively.
I know.
They one offensive touchdown in the first quarter or on the first drive this year? That's ridiculous. They've done nothing early on in games.
I agree. And this is part of my conversation, though. This is part of what I'm talking about. It's
not because they're not putting enough time in a preseason. They got
I'm
real
not saying
issues.
that's the only reason. I'm definitely not saying that's the only reason. But I am saying that's if you would have played them more in the preseason and they would have gotten more reps, then we wouldn't be starting so far behind to start the season. Now, that could potentially eliminate a lot of this stuff because now they're already in a rhythm and getting their timing going and yada, yada, yada. But clearly something is not right now still. And I think, in my opinion, I believe that Flus has done a good job of building a culture here. I don't disagree with that. I think he's done a lot of. Let me just say this
real quick before you continue. I want to mention this because I think it's important that we say it. Okay. There is about a 0.00001% chance of Eberflus being fired midseason. So let's consider that real quick, guys. Yes. The Bears just do not fire coaches in the middle of the season. They just don't do it. And let's be frank also, he is definitely not the worst Bears coach at this point in his career than some of the other ones have been. Now, you might put out his numbers and his stats and like how many games you won and whatnot, but it's like, you got to remember the terrible roster he had his first year.
I'm telling you, they don't count year one. Year one is absolved. They don't even think about that.
But at the same time, well, they have to count it to an extent. There are things that happen from a coaching perspective that you're going to evaluate still. But at the same time, my whole point here is that we have to remember they're almost guaranteed not going to fire him. So the whole point is, it's like we have to have some hope about this, that he will be better. That he will improve, because if they're not going to, that's what we should want anyways, is for the whole coaching staff and the team to, go on a roll here, get on fire, make a playoff push and play well, because then going into next year, you're feeling better instead of like having a brand new coaching staff come in and hopefully turn the team around, which we saw Matt Nagy do that in year one, but look what happened in years 2, 3, and 4. So, it's like, we got to stop living in the whole. You got to stop living in the whole like change right now mindset. It's just not going to happen. And I understand, like Bearski says you have to consider the first year, the third worst year we've ever had wins wise. You do count it year one, that he's still coaching, could have elevated a better roster, but he didn't. To an extent, I agree with you, Bearski, but they had some games.
Kind of elevate that roster too. We saw the emergence of Tyler and Jaquan.
There were some games where they played really well, and it was like the Patriots game, one I can think of in particular, they played really well. And Belichick complimented Eberflus after the game, saying, "Hey, your guys play extremely hard for you." And you could see it in that game. They played really well and they played really hard. So he did elevate some players, and he's developed some guys. I mean, let's be honest here. You can't say he hasn't developed the defense. They've had young guys that have come a long way. Jervon Dexter's playing pretty damn well. Kyler Gordon has progressed in defense. Jaquan Brisker has progressed in defense. These guys are all drafted players that Eberflus has made better or helped make better.
Even the undrafted guys.
My whole, I'm like spinning a wheel here, but the whole point is, like I said at the beginning, they're not going to fire me, during the season here. So let's just hope they turn it around and play good football. It doesn't look great right now, but if they get a win against New England, then they come out and beat Green Bay the next week, we're all going to be feeling great for, the next several weeks here. So we just got to consider that too. It's like, you live in the moment, but you got to understand that there are going to be good moments down the road. So let's just, hope. That's what we can do, is we can hope. It doesn't look great right now, but let's hope they turn it around.
Bullshit.
I will say this.
They probably won't. Well, let's hope.
I will say this. I did not agree with the people that wanted Flus fired after last season. I agree that after year one and after year two, you almost had to give him another season and give him a chance with a good roster to see what he could do, because we did see that he coached his coaching style, at least on the defensive side, and you could see the guys wanted to play for him. They played hard for him no matter what. So I didn't disagree that I did think that he should have been retained at least that was the direction they were going to go anyway. And I didn't have a justifiable argument to say he absolutely needed to go. However, after this year, with it being year 3, if we don't see some sort of semblance of a rising rookie quarterback that's going to be top 5 in this league for the next however many years, if we start seeing the defense regressing, the offense is still not improving, it's time to go. Regardless, and I know we keep playing this charade of you draft the QB, you fire the coach. You draft the QB, you fire the coach. But at the same time, if he's not getting the job done, if he's not showing improvement on the offensive side of the ball, regardless if he's a defensive coach or not, the team is his responsibility. And this is, I've been clamoring for this for a while. I don't necessarily believe that it has to be an offensive-minded head coach that you bring in. I don't necessarily agree with that. I know a lot of people have called for that over and over and over again. It would be my preference, yes, but I don't think it's necessary. The problem is Flus is so worried about the defense and calling plays on defense that I don't think he's putting his full time and invested effort into the team as a whole. He says, well, I go to their meetings every day and blah, blah, blah. But are you really investing in that side of the ball? Because in my opinion, that's the weakest part on your team. So that's where you as the head coach need to spend more of your time, not with the defense. I get that Eric Washington is doing all your weekly preparations and yada, yada, yada. But then you're calling plays. So if he's doing all the preparations and he's doing all of those things, why can't he call plays in the game? I believe Eric Washington can do just fine of a job doing it. I really believe that. I think he'd be fine. And I'm not saying I agree that Flus has done an excellent job calling plays for the most part for the defense. But maybe, just maybe.
Tim froze up, so.
You're frozen on my screen. All I'm saying is maybe, just maybe, if you would focus more on the game and less on the defense, maybe you wouldn't make some of those bad mistakes that you've made and questionable calls. You would actually do a better job in game scenario. So there's a lot that goes into this. So I will say this much. If there is not a massive growth by the end of this season, if they don't start going on, if they don't start winning some of these games, especially, they got to win some road games. They can't seem to win a road game for their life. They got to start winning some of these games. And if they do, and they start getting better, then maybe we will start seeing this thing go in the right direction and Flus may be able to retain his job. But as of right now, it ain't looking real good. And there's a lot of speculation and a lot of things going on. But there's actually a clip I want to show, Aldo, if you can pull the Courtney Cronin one up. She was talking about, and this goes right along with this coaching Discord, she was talking about the communication between receivers and Caleb Williams. And I think it's very important to discuss this when we're talking about the coaching staff, because I think it is directly correlated to them. So, Aldo, if you could pull that up, and then we can comment on it after.
If that is the case, then you're saying the coaches don't know how to manage egos. If that's the truth, then you're saying the coaches don't know how to manage egos. And where does that start? It starts with the head coach. Ultimately, yeah. If you can't figure it out because you're trying, like, okay, let's all be PC here and like your day's this day, your day's this day. Yeah. And then it's not working because you can't get in a rhythm because you're trying something new. And maybe that's the reason that the communication is apparently so poor between quarterback and his receivers, because he's missing them and he's been off target. Like, this is not somebody who's had accuracy issues.
I love what she says here, because she's talking about this being politically correct and making sure each guy is getting his day and yada, yada, yada. And if you guys have listened, DJ has even said that, and Cole has even said that, like, this game might not be my day, and, but I still got to go out there and do my job and blah, 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 blah. So it almost does sound like the coaching staff is saying, hey, we need to get Keenan involved in this game, or hey, this is the game we need to get Cole involved more, or hey, this is the day we need to get Rome involved more. And if you're watching, it almost looks like that's the game plan, because there's been 2 or 3 games where Rome was kind of the focal point. There was 1 or 2 games where DJ was the focal point. There's been about 3 games where Keenan Allen's been the focal point, and 2 or 3 games where Cole Kmet was a focal point with DJ. But to me, that is so asinine. You cannot go into a game and saying, we need to target this guy more because we want to get him going. If there's a specific matchup that you want to target, what's the word I'm looking for? Exploit, then sure, you try to exploit that matchup. That's great. But to go into the game and saying, hey, I want to get this guy going, and this is probably exactly what it is. The communication is poor because he's not able to just build a rhythm with these guys because he's trying so hard to just play within the game and play with what they want him to do. Like, okay, you got to throw it to Keenan here. You got to make sure that you're targeting Keenan in this game, regardless if he's open or not. So he's not even looking at DJ necessarily, or he's not looking at Cole or whatever. If that's the case, I 100% agree. That is a huge indictment on Eberflus, because that is your job as the head coach to manage those egos. So it's not, well, I'm not getting the ball enough here. I'm not. And honestly, I don't see these receivers necessarily being that way, because we've not seen any diva out of DJ Moore, with the exception of I just think that's just the kind of guy he is just kind of mellow and doesn't have a whole lot to say. And he's kind of goofy and all those things. But there's been nothing where he's ever said, like, they need to feed me the ball more. We've never heard any of those things. But you can definitely tell that he's definitely getting frustrated with not getting the ball, because he knows that he's open and he can give this team a chance to make plays and win games. So I do firmly believe that Courtney is really onto something here. And at some point, yes, the accountability does need to be held with the head coach and not just the players and the execution and not just your OC and not just whoever. You have to take responsibility. And we've only heard that a few times where he actually is willing to take responsibility for the decisions that he makes with this team. Maybe if you're leaving it to Shane Waldron to run the offense and make all the decisions, maybe you need to step in there and say, okay, now's the time. I'm going to step in and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is what we need to do. You can still call the plays, and I'm not trying to change your whole game plan, but we need to stop with this. Let's get this guy going, and we need to stop with this, trying to do this. We need to focus on what works, which is, and Flus has said it multiple times, we need to get the run game going. So maybe you should be preaching that to your offensive coordinator. Get the run game going, get Cole going, get DJ going. Those are the 3 things to me that this offense really needs to do, because obviously the offensive line isn't going to get like leaps and bounds better over the next, several weeks or finish the end of the season, because we just don't have the depth or the talent.
Well, right now they're so depleted that they're just going to have to get rid of the ball quickly in general.
Yes.
So they better scheme up a passing game that revolves around the quick game, because that's what they're going to need to do.
Yeah, which is exactly what I've been preaching on this show today. So, yeah, Jeff, I don't know if what are your thoughts on that Courtney's clip there, and what do you see this the same way I'm seeing it? Like, at some point, something's got to give.
Well, it's hard to say. So, I think at the end of the day, it's like they have to make, adjustments. They have to make changes. And I just said many times, they got to run the ball more, and I hope they do. So, I don't want to dig into it too much more, because that's basically what we've been talking about. But yeah, it's gotta be different. There is a point that I'll try to get to it real quick, because it kind of goes in line with what we're talking about here. Bearski mentioned earlier that, because I mentioned to you guys that the hope is that the coaching gets better towards the end of the season here, and the team plays better, and they make a playoff push. He says that he hates hope, that he's been saying this over and over. He wants to win by design, done hoping to get lucky. He wanted to fire Flus after last year. It would have been a step ahead, not a step behind. So first thing, and he says many coaches in this league could do exactly what he's doing with the talent they have on this defense. There's some truth to this, okay? There's some truth to what you're saying here. I will say this, though. When I say hope, I'm not saying that like, oh, my gosh, I hope that there's this magic bottle that's going to, I'm going to be able to wish that they all of a sudden are able to do things that they've never shown an ability to do. But what I will say is they have shown some good things. My hope is that they can consistently put together the good game plans that they have in the past. They can consistently get the players to play hard for them. and that they can, if there is one area that they really need to show some improvement, especially with Eberflus, is those in-game decision making, where it's like, you're talking about timeout usage, or you're talking about challenge usage and things of that nature, where he's had some real issues with that. You would hope that's where you would be hoping, like really hoping that would improve, because he hasn't really shown an ability to do that yet. But there are some areas where you've seen good defensive play and some good things in, from a developmental standpoint. And also, again, like, their players have played hard for him. So then they obviously do that out of respect for him and what he's teaching them, the knowledge he's giving them, at least in my opinion. So, but again, you make a good point that there probably are a lot of coaches out there who could get a lot out of this talent here, this defense. But he's been a pretty damn good play caller too, though, for the most part. I can't really complain about that. So, I mean, my whole point is that, like, you would hope that they can put more consistent performances together. But again, like I said before, at this rate, it ain't looking good. So, I mean, there's a good chance that if they don't fire him at the end of this year, next year is for sure his, like, you better be making a run, because you're done. So, but in any case,
I would say if he is kept after this season and they start off poorly next year, that will be the first in-season firing that we've seen with the Bears. I would not be surprised one bit.
Yeah, Bears, and again, good point, Bearsky. They've had those late game blowouts. There's been 4 of them now where they lost at the end of the game, where they had no business losing those games. I mean, it's unreal. A lot of that's on coaching. He talks about being able to finish, but you got to be able to finish as a coaching staff too. Nail the coffin, so to speak. So that is a problem. And it really is a problem. But anyways, there's some questions in here we got to get to before we get out of here. So first one here is from Leo. Who's having a worse season as a coordinator, Flus or Waldron? Oh, I think that's easily Waldron.
That's definitely Waldron.
From a coordinator perspective, absolutely. And really, because Flus isn't the coordinator, he's just the play caller. Eric Washington's doing the coordinating for the defense.
Well, if you're specifically talking about play calling, I think it's still Waldron. Yes, and for being totally honest, Flus has had an excellent season play calling for the defense. He's a great play caller. He's great defensive mind, but this is a no-brainer in my opinion. I agree with you.
Yeah. So as far as play caller, absolutely. So Bearsky said earlier that anytime he's at a bar and he pays to hear a song, it's always "Dogs" by Pink Floyd, and I get my money's worth. He's talking in reference because I got my Pink Floyd shirt on right now, or one of my Pink Floyd shirts. And you know what? You are definitely going to get your money's worth with that one, buddy, because an 18-minute song or something? Mm-hmm. You're definitely getting your money's worth with that one for sure.
David Gilmour's solos in Comfortably Numb are the greatest solos ever put into a song ever. I'm not saying it's the most difficult or the hardest or the best solo, but it is the best solo in a song. And if you listen to that and you don't feel something, there is seriously something wrong with you. It is absolutely incredible. One of my favorites of all time.
Very possible there. A great song.
Yes.
So Cliff says that Bears have bigger problems than any individual players. Dickus would say the team is in disarray. Right now it is. The last couple of weeks it has been.
Well, isn't it kind of irony too that like George Halas hated Mike Ditka for the most part, especially the way he was, and yet, Halas's family is still running the team, and guess what? They're in total disarray all the time. Like, maybe you need a Ditka. That's the reason that you had a Super Bowl championship to begin with. So maybe we should start looking inward, like we hear all the time from the coaching staff. Let's look inward in ownership, and maybe we'll see something. Because I saw Aldo made a point on here earlier about how the NFL or Roger Goodell should force the Bears to sell the team, or force the McCaskies to sell the team. It's never going to happen, but yeah, I mean, at some point, something's got to give. I mean, obviously, it's not just there's obviously an issue in the building. And it's not every single GM you hire. It's not every single coach you hire. At some point, when are you going to admit that you're at fault? I do think that they're going in the right direction with Poles and with Warren. My gosh, I can't think of his first name now. Kevin Warren. Thank you. I think those two are yes. I think they're in a good position with those guys, but at the same time, they still answer to George McCaskey, who is, I'm not going to get into that. That's another story for another day, but I think you all understand what I'm getting at. So, but yeah. Yeah, we've talked a lot about the coaches today, but
We
here's one
actually
more.
answered this question earlier in the show from Cliff about what happened with the coaches the last couple of games. He thought they finally had it going well, and then they went back to bad. I mean, yeah, it's basically what it's looked like the last couple of weeks. They look like they're not coaching hard or not playing hard. So that's why I say they need to get back to consistency here. And Dennis says, should we hope they lose and the players show out to get Flus fired, or should we hope for a clear offensive identity?
I will say this much: if they show out and lose, they're only helping Flus. They're not helping him get fired, because I don't think the record is all that much of an indication of what they believe is a success this year. They want to see the players showing out, and they want to see growth from the offense. I don't think the wins and losses are as important. Yes, of course, winning games is important, but I think that Ryan Poles and the entire management staff is looking for looking for the team to have success on the field, regardless of wins or losses, so much as it is they want to see this thing growing. That's what I think.
Yeah. I think they got to, you always want to see them win and play well. I'm still hoping that they make a playoff push and that they start, they get into a rhythm in the division, and that Caleb shows his best. The defense shows their best. They run the football, and, the receivers are on and a good connection and rapport with them, and there's a partridge in a pear tree. So, that's my hope. And I just hope that that's the case, that they get to that point and revert to their consistency, but I don't know that they will. That's just, I want to see them make a push. So next, there's some more questions here. Miguel says, in order to have a top 5 quarterback, you need to have a quarterback that's capable of being a top 5 quarterback, and Caleb is not capable of being a top 5 quarterback. So it's a lot of usage of top 5 quarterback in there. But I'll just say this. There aren't very many guys who have the kind of arm talent that Caleb has. Has his accuracy down the field and in other aspects not been up to point in the NFL as it was in college? No, it has not been the same. I don't think that that's going to be a long-term issue. He's a rookie. He's seeing a lot of new things. He's under pressure from a lot of defenses because his offensive line sucks. So it's a difficult position to be in, especially when your receivers aren't getting open. So he can absolutely be a top 5 quarterback with his arm talent and with his knowledge of the game as well. The way he's wired, the way he wants to learn, the way he's dialed in. It's all, he can be a top 5 quarterback. And King Book World makes a great point. How can you even say that after 8 games? You can't. So I just think what you can say is that he's got innate ability that gives him an upside that, could get him to that point. It's hard to say if he'll get there or not. So there's a couple of music questions in here, as we were talking about earlier with Pink Floyd. Cliff says that they're one of the 70s big 3 between Floyd, Zeppelin, and the Rolling Stones. Last week I wore a Zeppelin shirt. Maybe I'll wear a Stone shirt next week for you guys. So, yeah, I can't disagree with that. It's 3 of the best bands of all time and 3 of the best guitar players of all time. So, you're talking about those some phenomenal, just phenomenal bands. I love it. And there was a question in here from Bearsky about Pink Floyd, our favorite Pink Floyd songs. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. He says he loves Pink Floyd. Tool's his favorite band, and they're a modern day Pink Floyd in his opinion. I do like Tool a little bit. I don't have a Tool shirt. I saw you said something about me wearing a Tool shirt on the show next week, but I don't have one. Here's this question about Pink Floyd. He wants to know what our favorite song or album is, and it's hard for me to pick one because
I can pick an album.
Dark Side of the Moon is such a classic, but I think The Wall is my personal favorite.
The Wall might be the greatest album ever made by anyone.
They're both so good, but The Wall I just love. It's supposed to be a rock opera, and it kind of flows in that way, and just the way they've got the way that the songs lead into each other, and some of the guitar solos on that album, they're so good, so phenomenal. So I think it's right there, but Dark Side of the Moon is right up there with it, man. It's got some great stuff on it too. So, but I think my favorite all-time song is like Tim said earlier, probably Comfortably Numb. It's just
I like Young. It's probably that, and then Young Lust is my number 2. Probably I love
Young Lust is pretty good too. Hey You's another one of my favorites. Money, great song.
Oh yeah.
Time is one of my favorites.
Great one.
There's so many good songs. So many good songs. Welcome to the Machine, another great song. King Book World. Animals, Bearski says. I mean, so many good songs. That's his favorite album, he says. So they just, I mean, I've actually got a poster on my wall. If you guys could see it, which you can't right now, maybe I can get it on the screen one of these days. But I've got a poster of these 5 women who have 5 different Pink Floyd albums painted on their bags. It's pretty cool. They're like a swimming pool, but they've got like 5 of their albums. Animals is one of them. So, and obviously, you know, Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall are as well. So it's pretty cool. Maybe I'll show it to you guys one of these days. But in any case, yeah, that's just great conversation. I love Pink Floyd. I mean, I don't know how you could not watching them. Aldo, that's funny, but I'm not going to answer that on set. But in any case, yeah,
no,
I love
Jeff's guys. I wouldn't bet on it.
I like at the end of our show how we always have lately have been having you guys bring up like music topics or whatever outside of football. I like to answer questions about bands, and I have a tendency to wear band shirts anyway. So I'll wear a Stone shirt next week, and we can talk about some Rolling Stones if you guys want. So
you guys need to expand your library to some more alternative and like metal.
They probably like Nirvana and Alice in Chains and stuff like that.
That's
too.
grunge. I specifically said metal, but yes, I like grunge too.
Anyways, we appreciate you guys being here. We got to go. It was a great show tonight. We went over a lot of topics. We're hoping we didn't really get to dig into the New England game, but hopefully they just, you know, the goal is that they play better football because they're capable of doing so. So let's put let's make it manifest. That's what I'm looking for. What I was looking for. Let's manifest it into the world and help them to get a big win this weekend because they need it bad. So, like I said, guys, we got to get out of here. Please give us a like on the video here. And subscribe to the channel. You can find us at Barroom Network here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us all on X as well or Twitter. Like I said, Aldo is at Barroom Network. He's our executive producer for the channel and our show. You can also find me at _Jeff Willis. You can find Tim at Tim Willis 24. So again, guys, great show tonight. We'll see you next week. Let's get that win and bear down.
Got Bears.
The Willis Twin Towers podcast is a Barroom Network production. Jeff and Tim Willis are the co-hosts and co-producers. Aldo Gandia is executive producer. Music is licensed from Pond 5. Any copyrighted material used was done under the Fair Use Doctrine for commentary, criticism, and informative purposes. All of our programming is available in audio-only format by subscribing to the Barroom Network wherever you download podcasts. Videos are archived on YouTube.